Hey guys, this is your host Thomas Tyree here from On the Hot Podcast. Today, this will be episode 216 for you guys today. And to kick off this week's episode, I will be discussing how stacked and how entertaining the Western Conference and the NBA will be next NBA season. So, looking at the Western Conference, we are in for a treat for next year's NBA season. Now, if you look at the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference right now, respectfully, with everything that's going on in the Eastern Conference, depleted with injuries, the Eastern Conference is the JV of the NBA. The Western Conference is the varsity of the NBA right now, and it's going to be coming down to the wire in the standings once again, because last year, you take away what the reigning defending NBA champions did, the Oklahoma City Thunder, that ran away with 68 wins, that played keep away from with the number one seed. Look at everything down from the second seed all the way to the eighth seed. There were, with the Rockets being the second seed, and everybody was only separated by 2 games or less. And now this year, there's some massive storylines heading into the Western Conference. I mean, you got the reigning defending NBA champions and the Oklahoma City Thunder trying to run it back. They are a young team that looks like they're not going anywhere anytime soon. You have the Houston Rockets that were just the second seed in the Western Conference last year. They just acquired Kevin Durant. They got their closer and their best offensive player now with the Houston Rockets team. The Nuggets are looking like they still want to contend, even though Nikola Jokic did not signed. It doesn't look like it's going to be for the best for the future right now, but they are adding more depth with him in Denver. The Lakers finally get their big man DeAndre Ayton. Can these veteran teams that are getting up there in age, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Golden State Warriors, still compete for titles? Dallas Mavericks just got Cooper Flag in the draft, and they're looking pretty good roster-wise. Can the Minnesota Timberwolves stay relevant after making back-to-back Western Conference Finals appearances? The Western Conference is going to be a treat next year in the NBA season. I'm telling you guys now, get your popcorn ready, because just like it was this year, it might be a team or might not be a team that can get 60-plus wins to play keep away with the number one seed in the Western Conference, and then everybody else will jockey for position. But I feel like it's going to be this tight all year long, with seeding being separated only by a game or 2 games in the Western Conference. But let's go into a deeper dive of why I do believe the Western Conference is going to be an absolute treat, an absolute cinema for next year's NBA season. So let's go into the reigning defending NBA champions of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, this team is not going anywhere. They're going to run it back with this young core. They don't need any superstars. They don't need to make any big time moves or any big splashes of free agency. They're confident to run it back with the same exact core next year, and they just won their first NBA title in franchise history under the Oklahoma City Thunder banner. And they're the second youngest team in NBA history to win an NBA championship, and they're the favorites to do it again in the Western Conference. I don't see why anybody else has put themselves in position to be favored over the Oklahoma City Thunder right now. And SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, is coming off the best season of his NBA career. I mean, he just won the MVP award. He just won the Finals MVP award. He just won the Western Conference Finals MVP award. He just won his first scoring title, and he's on the cover of NBA 2K26. What more do you want if you're Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Plus, he just locked up a big max contract to be locked up for the future for good reasons and good purposes with the Oklahoma City Thunder moving forward. So life is good if you're an Oklahoma City Thunder fan, and also they still have the young talented players playing alongside SGA like Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren, and they're still going to have plenty depth across the board, and there's probably going to have the best defense once again in the NBA. Again, PTO, points off the turnovers. Shout out to Skip Bayless. So this Oklahoma City Thunder team looks like they're not going anywhere anytime soon, but they're going to be here to defend their crown in a loaded Western Conference. Then, looking at what's going on in H-Town with the Rockets, they already had their head coach of Ime Udoka. He is known for what he's done with the Boston Celtics in the past. Came to H-Town a few years ago. Now has a really good team in the Western Conference to go out there and compete and take the next step forward for championship aspirations next year. And I honestly believe, when I look back at the footage, when I think about it even more, if the Rockets had a closer or a number one scoring option, they would have got past the Golden State Warriors in the first round. And that series went to Game 7, let alone without having a true number one scoring option or a closer. So that just shows you how good this Rockets team really is. And now you have a true number one scoring option in Kevin Durant in H-Town. So, again, with the Jalen Green trade, some people might say the Rockets gave up on him too fast, but you got to think about the situation. When you got a chance to get a player that's in his late 30s, still arguably in the prime of his career, shooting wise, and look at his shooting numbers and the way he's shooting from the floor, from shooting percentage, you got to say, you got to pull the trigger when the iron is hot. With a great team like this, to get a Hall of Fame talent in Kevin Durant and bring him to Houston, and that's what they just did. They had to give up Jalen Green. To be honest with you guys, I didn't think he was a franchise guy, but they moved off of Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks. But even with this Kevin Durant trade, you still kept some young talented players of Jabari Parker, Sengun, Amen Thompson, and again, I've been raving about it since this trade has happened, but I feel like the Houston Rockets are in position to win 55 to 60 games or more if this roster is completely healthy next NBA season. So they're going to be here to stay, and they're a heavyweight contender in the Western Conference. Then I'm looking at the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets took what they did last year. They did take the Oklahoma City Thunder to a 7-game series, and they lost in Game 7, got blown out. But think about it. They went to Game 7 with the reigning defending NBA champions, gave the Oklahoma City Thunder their toughest challenge in the playoffs last year. And they did it without Michael Malone, who was fired by the franchise a few weeks prior to them making to the second round at least, to hang with Oklahoma City Thunder for a 7-game series. So what they've done in the offseason, I said it last week, they swapped Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson. I'm in love with that trade. I believe that the chemistry of Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray will grow very quickly with a talented player in Cam Johnson, who was the number one scoring option with the Brooklyn Nets last year, now gets to scale back his role and learn from some of the best in the league in Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, be that third scoring option for the Denver Nuggets moving forward. And also they added some depth to the roster as well this free agency. They added Tim Hardaway Jr. That's going to be a really good three-point shooter when you need a spark and you need some points and flurries. Then you have Bobby Brown. He's back with the franchise. You look back at that 2023 run that they won the NBA title, their only title in franchise history. Bobby Brown had a really tremendous year, and his best NBA season that he had in the NBA was with the Orlando Magic. Now scales back and finds himself back with the Denver Nuggets trying to compete for a title. Then Jonas Valanciunas, I know he might get his contract bought out and might look to play overseas, but I would weigh this out if I was Jonas Valanciunas playing alongside Joker or coming off the bench and you get a chance to play with Jokic. But if Jonas Valanciunas decides to not play for the Nuggets or they buy out his contract, he plays overseas, if I'm the Nuggets, I would give Al Horford a call and to bring a veteran championship caliber player off the bench to help compete for a title in the Western Conference. So I think that is something to look forward to, but I'm in love with what the Nuggets are doing right now. You can't forget about the Minnesota Timberwolves. And the Minnesota Timberwolves have gotten to back-to-back Western Conference Finals appearances. And last year, I counted them out. And I thought at first that Julius Randle and that Karl-Anthony Towns trade was silly. But it looked like it played out well for both teams. I just need Julius Randle to pick it up in the playoffs and not choke or fade away or get sat down in pivotal moments that your team can lean on you for offensive spark. So they did. I will give the Timberwolves credit. They did go on a big second half run. The gentlemen swept the Lakers in the first round. Gentlemen swept the Warriors in the second round, and just fell short against Oklahoma City Thunder. But you can't sleep on them. Can't count them out. So they'll be here in the Western Conference. And then let's take a look at these veteran teams like the Golden State Warriors. You can't count them out yet. I think they're still a championship caliber team. And they proved that last year. When Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler were on the court together, they hardly lost games together after the NBA trade deadline. When Jimmy Butler got there, remember, in the second half, they got better playing defensively. They were scoring more. They were drawing more contact to get to the free throw line and score points there. this was a physical team that was starting to come together, but everything fell apart. And during the playoffs with the Steph Curry injury, I think they still have a chance to go on a run. Steph Curry's injury in the first game against the Minnesota Timberwolves. After that, the Warriors won the game, but at what cost? Because they lost Steph Curry for the rest of the series, and they lost the entire series after that. Got gentlemen swept. So I know the Warriors are still monitoring this Jonathan Kuminga situation, as he's a restricted free agent right now. Maybe if he gets moved, which I'll talk about later on the episode, maybe they can use the money elsewhere to get in some pieces to help this team compete for an NBA title. But I still feel confident that Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green, they might not be a top 5 team, but they'll float around the Western Conference. When that time comes, you still got to consider them as championship caliber team. Now, are the Clippers still a threat? Another veteran team. I got to say, they're a threat, but they're not a championship contending team right now. Now, Kawhi Leonard only played 37 games last year, but they were still a top 5 team in the Western Conference last year, the Clippers were. And they went on a hot streak, a really hot run, won 19 out of their final 21 games of the regular season. So the hope is still there because James Harden had a really good season last year. Chris Dunn plays well defensively. He's going to be a good piece to come off the bench for the Clippers next year. They added Brook Lopez and they got John Collins. So I think this team has depth, but time is not on their side because these players are getting older. And in a Western Conference that is going to continue to grow, the Clippers can only do so much with this roster for a little bit longer. Maybe a year or two left, and then the window is closed and you might as well blow it up if you haven't seen any progression. But last but not least, the final team I'll cover in the segment in the Western Conference is the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, Lakers finally got their big man in DeAndre Ayton, but at what cost? Because LeBron James, it's weird right now. We don't know if he's happy, he's content, what's going on, because he's heading to year 23 of his illustrious NBA career, but his time in LA could be coming to an end, and he's not going to get moved this offseason. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers decide to move off him by the trade deadline if they're not a top 5, top 6 team in the West, based off the comments that he said this summer thus far. And he's opted into his contract, which makes things very strange and bizarre in LA, making us think is everything with LeBron James. Making us think, is LeBron James truly happy in LA? So, and he's expressed that he wants to compete now, but he can't call the shots anymore. The future is around Luka Doncic in LA. He's no longer the best player, a part of an NBA franchise, which is mind-boggling for the longevity that LeBron James has been in the league. But Luka is the new star in LA. They're going to build around him with LeBron's future up in the air. He might only have 1 to 2 seasons left. So the trio, don't get me wrong, the scoring trio of LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Austin Reeves, business is going to be booming in LA next year. But DeAndre Ayton, he is going to be that big man that you want, but he's not that big man that you need in the Western Conference because size matters and being a defender matters. DeAndre Ayton is not going to be asked to score a whole lot of points with these 3 respective players of LeBron, Luka, and Austin Reeves in the lineup. Your job is really going to be able to get rebounds. Can you play defense? Can you be a solid rim protector? And DeAndre Ayton is not a good rim protector. He's not a good defender. So what good is he really going to be with this Los Angeles Lakers team? I'm not buying into the hype all the way about DeAndre Ayton, but we'll see how it looks in LA next year. But those are my thoughts on how the Western Conference could potentially play out next year in the NBA. Again, get your popcorn ready. Next year in the NBA, the Western Conference is going to be the varsity, and the Eastern Conference is going to be the JV of NBA basketball.